Okay, so we're back with another tutorial video. For this one, we're going to be creating a GPA calculator program. And the first thing you want to do is make sure that you click on the link in this YouTube video in the information section for the video. You'll see a link for a Scratch file. That will give you this code that you see on your screen here. It's just the starter code for this program. And basically what this program is going to do is it's going to ask the user to type in letter grades. So say, for example, you take 7 classes, you're going to be able to type in 7 letter grades. So you could type in an A or a B or a C minus or a D or something along those lines. And then when you're done typing in all of your letter grades, you type in the word done. And then the program is going to output your GPA, and it's also going to give you your letter grade average. So it might say something like you have a B minus average or an A plus average, something along those lines. We're actually not going to use A pluses, so that was a bad example, but it's going to give you your GPA as well as your letter grade average. And so a couple quick things. We do have some starter code here, as you can see, and we already have our variables created. So we have 3 variables that have been created, and actually we have 4 variables rather. We have our actual GPA, we have a grade count, so that'll be the number of grades that the user types in. We've got the grade sum, so those are the values of each grade added up, and then we've also got our letter grade, which is going to be what the user types in. And just in case, what we're going to do, so the way this program is going to work is we've got our 4.0 GPA scale, and this is how the GPA scale works. So if you have an A average, that would be a 4.0 GPA. A minus would be 3.9 to 3.7, B plus is 3.6 to 3.3, etc., etc. So these are the averages. However, a grade, so when you're calculating GPA, an A, and let me zoom this in a little bit for you, an A is going to equal 4 points, a B will equal 3 points, a C will equal 2 points, a D will equal 1 point, and an F is equal to 0 points. And so that's how that works. And what happens is when we average this all out, that's where we're going to get these different values here. And that's how we're going to know if we're at, say, a B plus average versus a B minus average. So that just depends on the number of A's and B's we have, or possibly C's in there. So that's just how this program is going to work. Now, other GPA calculators might work differently. This might be different from the school that you're at, but just for the sake of a GPA calculator, that's how ours is going to work. So it might not be exactly the same as other ones, the way other ones work. This is just how ours is going to work, though. So the first thing we need to do is let's just take a look at what our program currently does with this starter code by clicking the green flag. So you'll see that it says enter your letter grade for a class, and this one actually says no pluses or minuses. So I'm actually going to, we're going to still say no pluses or minuses, and then type done when you're ready to calculate your GPA. Okay, so it's asking for that information, and then you'll see that that answer we save to this variable called letter grade. So whatever the user types in here, we set that to the variable letter grade. Now, what we want to do is we want to repeat this process. So we want to let the user type in any number of grades that they want to until they type in the word done, because done is going to stop the program. It's going to stop allowing you to enter letter grades, and then it's going to actually find your GPA. So first thing I'm going to do is go to operators, and I'm going to grab an equals operator, and then I'm going to go to variables, and I'm going to grab a letter grade variable, and I'm going to repeat this until letter grade is equal to done. right there. And also, yeah, so that should be good. So let's just test this. If I type done, the program will end. Okay, that works. So that's the first thing. So this right here, if you remember, this is a, oops, not duplicate. This right here is a loop. And the repeat until loop is very similar to what's called a while loop. And so this loop will continue until this condition is true. And so that's exactly what we want it to do. Now, what we need to do here is we need to check to see what values the user is typing in. And of course, you can see here when I click the green flag, we want them to enter a letter grade. So that's an A, B, C, D, or F. And so I'm going to go over to control and I'm going to grab an if then else statement. And what I want to do is go over to operators and grab another equals. And I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to grab another letter grade. And I'm going to say, well, if what the user types in, so assuming it's not the word done, if they type in an A, here's what I need to do. If they type in an A, I need to add a value of 4, because if you remember, an A is worth 4 points right here. I need to add the value of 4 to our grade sum. And then I also need to increase my grade count by 1, because when I do an average, and let me just write this down here real quick. So if I do an average, and if you remember the formula for an average, which hopefully you do, but if not, we'll write it here. An average is when you take the sum of a series of numbers. Scroll that over a little bit. Average is the sum of a series of numbers divided by the total set of numbers, the total number. So for example, if I have 7 classes, or an example of this would be, let's say we have all A's in a class, and I have, let's say, 5 classes, I would do 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4, right? So I've got 5 4s because I have 5 classes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I would take that value and divide it by 5. And obviously just knowing how averages work, because I have all 4s, my average is going to be 4. So that would be a average, right? So just in case you're not familiar with averages, that's how they work. It's pretty straightforward, but that's basically what we're doing here. So if the user types in an A, what I want to do is I want to grab one of these set blocks. You can find the set blocks in the variables category, but I want to set my grade sum. What I want to do is I want to set it to, first off, I go to operators. I'm going to grab a plus operator. So I'm going to set it equal to whatever I currently have in my grade sum plus the value of 4, because an A is worth 4 points. And I just want to show you what this looks like. So what I'm going to do, let me switch on all of my variables real quick so you can see these. And you can turn those on so that they're visible by going to the variables category and clicking on the checkboxes for your variables. So if I click this here, and let's say I type in an A. Now, you'll see that I typed in an A and these numbers are just going nuts. And so what's happening is we're in an infinite loop right now. And that's because when I clicked an A, the only other bit of code that's running in this loop right here is I'm just adding 4. I'm adding 4 over and over and over and over again, and it's going to go on forever until I hit stop. So, and that's because there's nothing else inside of this block of code. So that's not what I want it to do. I want it to ask me to enter a grade each time. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab another ask block, and I'm going to put it down here right below the if statement. And I'm going to put the same thing that I asked up here. I'm going to put it down here. And let's see what happens. So if I type in an A, you'll see that my grade sum is now 4, but now it's asking me the question again. So if I type in an A again, you'll now see that the grade sum goes up to 8. But there is a problem with this. So if I type in a B and hit enter, you'll see that it goes up to 12. Well, that's really weird because a B, well, for one, a B is equal to 3 points, but we never programmed anything over here to say, to add a B. We didn't program it to do anything else. So if I even type in the word done, it keeps adding 4 to my grade sum. And the reason being is that I have never, whatever this question here is asking for me to enter a letter grade, but I'm not saving the input that I'm typing in to any variable. And so all that's happening is letter grade is still set to A up here, because that was the very first thing I typed in. And you'll see that that answer got saved to letter grade. So even though I type in the word, let's say I type in the letter T, you'll see that letter grade does not change. It's still A. Well, that's not what I want it to do. So what I have to do is go over to variables and grab a set block again. And I'm going to drop that below the second time I ask this question. And I'm going to set letter grade equal to, or I'm going to set the letter grade to whatever the answer is. So let's hit the green flag. Let's try this again. And if you just need a second to make your screen look like mine, just go ahead and pause the video, make your screen look like mine, and then come back. Hopefully you're back. I'll just click the green flag. We'll give it a shot. Let's say I type in the letter A. Okay, that's working. The A's are working. How about a B? Let's type in a B. Okay, you'll notice the letter grade changes, but the grade sum does not change. So if I could type in as many B's as I want. How about a C? How about done? So done does work. That does end the program. And that's because if I ask the question again, I need to save that input somewhere. Otherwise, it'll disappear every single time I hit enter. So let's look at what we've got here so far. So when we click the green flag, our grade count gets set back to 0. So grade count 0, grade sum is 0. It'll ask the question, enter your letter grade, which it does here. Whatever your answer is, so for example, if I type in A, that answer gets set to the variable letter grade. So you'll see up here that letter grade is now A. And then this loop is going to start running. And as long as letter grade does not equal done, which it does not, it still lets me add letter grades or input letter grades. And then if the letter grade is equal to A, we're going to take whatever grade sum currently is, and we're going to add 4 to it. And we're going to set that value to the variable grade sum. Cool. Now, we also need to count the number of grades that we're entering, because we're going to need that value to find our average. So I'm going to go back to variables, and I'm going to grab a change block, and I'm going to change the grade count by 1. So every time we enter an A, we're going to increase our grade count by 1. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to click the green flag. Let's say I type in an A. You'll see that I've entered 1 grade with a value of 4. If I add another A, it'll give me it'll say 2 grades, and the value is 8. So far, so good. Also, I should mention, this works with lower cases also. So I could do like all caps done. It's still going to work. And that's just because Scratch is not case sensitive, which is really cool. So you don't have to worry about that. But I just make them all capitals anyway, just because I think it looks better. Cool. So you can probably guess that we really just need to repeat what we did right here for all of the other letter grades. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of is that we need to use if, then, else blocks for this. And the reason we need to do that is because if the user does not equal an A, I don't want it to do anything else. I want it to check to see what the user actually typed in. So what I'm going to do is put my cursor over where it says if. I'm going to 2-finger tap on my trackpad or right click on your mouse, and I'm going to click duplicate. And it's going to make this entire block of code here. And actually, I don't want the ask question again, because you'll notice that this ask question, or this ask block and set block, are outside of my if statements. So I want to keep this down here. These two blocks are still inside of the repeat block, but they're outside of the if statements. So all I want is this little block of code, and I'm going to put this into the else section. And you can read this block of code like this. So if the letter grade is equal to A, we're going to do this. Else if the letter grade is equal to B, we're going to add 3 to whatever the grade sum is and set that value to grade sum. We're also going to increase our grade count. And then we're just going to keep doing this. So I take another duplicated block of code, drop it in the else if, or in the else section, and I'm going to say if it's a C, we're going to add 2. Duplicate. If it's a D, we're going to add 1 point. And then right here, so the cool thing is here is that if it's not an A, a B, a C, a D, it's got to be an F. However, the issue with that is that if it's not an A, B, C, D, A, B, C, or D, I could technically type it. Well, I'll show you what this looks like. So if it's not any of these grades, we know it's got to be an F. So I'm just going to duplicate this little block of code here. I'm going to put it into else. And obviously we're going to add 0 because an F is worth 0. And then we're going to increase the grade count by 1. So let me zoom this out so you can kind of see what it looks like so far. Okay. Now let's just run this and let's see what happens. So let's say I type in A's and then I type done. Okay, you'll notice my grade sum is 24. I've got 6 grades entered. So that works. Let's try just kind of a combination. So we got some A's, we got a B, we got a C, we got another A, maybe a D, maybe an F. Okay, so that works, right? That looks like it works. Let me just show you what happens with the F. So if I type in all Fs, you should see the grade count go up, but obviously the grade sum doesn't go up. Here's the issue though. Let's say I type in Q. So my grade count goes up and my grade sum is still 0. Let's say I type in a T. Okay, so obviously that's not going to work. And the reason being is technically this works for an F, but I could type in any letter that is not A, B, C, or D, and it's going to add 0. So actually what I want to do, just to make this a little more clear, I'm going to go to Control and I'm just going to grab an if block. So no else part here, just an if block. And then I'm going to duplicate just this green block right here. So I'm going to 2-finger tap kind of where the equal symbol is and say duplicate. I'm going to drop it into that if statement and I'm going to change it to F. And I'm going to put this in there. Now, here's the thing. So let me just show you what this kind of does here. So let's test this out real quick. So I'll just add a couple A's, a couple B's. Okay, that's all working. How about a C, maybe a D? Do a couple F's, so you'll see that the grade count increases, but the grade sum stays the same. Let's say I type in a T. Okay. Let's say I type in an R. Notice that the grade sum and the grade count are not changing. Okay, that's pretty cool. That does work. If I want it to be really, really clear with my program, I could actually replace this if statement with an else if statement, like this. And we'll still keep our F here, and we'll keep this here like so. But maybe what I want to do is say, hey, look, you need to enter an A, B, C, D, or F, right? So I could go up to looks, grab a say hello for 2 seconds block, and I might say something like, please enter a valid letter grade. And I might say that for 3 seconds. So if I click the green flag, let's say I type in a couple A's, a couple B's, maybe an F, maybe a D, maybe a C. Let's say I accidentally type in an H. You'll see it says, please enter a valid letter grade, but notice these two values don't change. And then it goes right back to letting me type in my grades again. And then if I type done, the program will stop. So it looks like so far we've got sort of the first part of our program there. Okay, so we clearly have our grades added up. We've got our grade count there. All we need to do now is actually create our GPA. And so what I'm going to do, let me take this block off and just move it to the side. And notice right here I have this green block, and it just says leave this block here. What this is doing is it's just rounding the GPA to the nearest 10th. So if I didn't have this block here, you might get a GPA like 3.1762543 or something like that. This just rounds it to the nearest 10th. And so to figure out my GPA, all I need to do is take the grade sum, that's the sum of all the grades, and divide it by the grade count, like that. And then the rounding does the rest, and it should set our GPA. So let's see what actually happens here. Let's run our code by clicking the green flag. Let's say I type in, I'm gonna do all A's. I'll do 7 A's, and then I'll type done. Notice my GPA says 4. That would be correct. I've got all A's, right? Let's say I've got a few A's, a couple B's, a C, and 1 D. Notice my GPA did not change. Now that should, oh wait, I need to hit done, sorry. Done. Okay, so that GPA is 3.0. And so just that particular average happens to be 3.0. Let's do this with a couple C's, maybe an A, maybe a D, a couple of B's, and done. You'll see our GPA is a 2.4. So it looks, just from testing it, it looks like it's working. Let's say I just type in all F's. Type done, I should have a 0 GPA. If I type in all D's, I should have a 1 GPA. Yep, that looks like it's working okay. So our GPA calculator is pretty much working, but here's what we need to do next. We need to tell the user what, first off, we need to tell the user what their GPA is, not just have it display right here. We need to tell them what their GPA is, and we need to tell them what letter grade average they have. So in order for us to do that, we're going to need to use a few more of these if then else statements. And if you remember from previous videos, If then else statements, we refer to this structure as selection. Let's grab this if then else block and reattach it. And what I'm going to do is I need to have a condition that checks each one of these ranges. So I want to say if the GPA is a 4.0, they're going to have an A. If the GPA is between 3.9 to 3.7, it's going to be an A minus, etc., etc. And then I also need to have a custom statement for the user for each one of their GPA averages. And here's how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to make a note down here. Just for the sake of time, and obviously like we don't want to write a ton, I'm going to say if they have an A average, and that could be A minus, whatever, we're going to use the word excellent. And if they have sort of a B average, that's plus, minus, whatever, we're going to say great. If they have a C average, we're going to say that they are doing, or we're going to say something positive. Let's say maybe something like hang in there. And if they have a D average, we're going to say something like, what could we say for a D? Let's say, well, actually, let's say hang in there for the D. And we might say, keep working for C. For a C average. D, we'll say hang in there. And F, they have an F average. We're going to say something like, let's say, pick up the pace, maybe? I don't know. We'll come back and see if we can come up with some better things than that. But I just want to have sort of a custom message for each time we output the user's GPA and then also their letter grade GPA. Okay, so first things first, we want to check to see if their letter grade average or their GPA is a 4.0. Now for our scale, it doesn't go above a 4.0. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to grab an equals block. Now, just so you guys know, I'm just going to make a comment here. When we are using things like equals or greater than or less than, these things are called comparison operators. And all they're doing is they're comparing values. Now they still return true or false. So they're similar to a Boolean, and they are a Boolean, but they're a little different because these here are Booleans. These are comparison operators, but they still return true or false. So for example, let me grab a GPA block here, and I'm going to say if the GPA equals 4.0. Now let me just show you something real quick. So if I click the green flag, let's say I type in all A's, 7 A's, and I click done. Okay. Watch what happens when I click this block. Notice how it says true. It's true because GPA, the value of GPA is 4. That is equal to 4.0. So this returns true. So it's still a Boolean, but we refer to it as a comparison operator. So equals are comparison operators. So it's greater than or less than, things like that. So if, for example, the user's GPA is 4.0, we are going to write something like this. I'm gonna go and grab a look block. We will grab this time we're gonna grab a say block, because once they've typed done, we're gonna calculate their GPA, we're gonna print out this message, and then the program's over. So if they wanna run it again, they need to click the green flag. So we're gonna say something like this. And because it's an A average, I'm going to say excellent. Excellent. You have A. And notice I could put in just 4.0 here. I could do something like that, but I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that no matter what they type in, the message that's coming out is going to be updated based on what the user's actual information is. And in order to do that, I'm going to go to operators and I'm going to grab one of these join blocks. In fact, I'm going to grab a couple join blocks just to be on the safe side. Now, you might also remember this from previous videos, but the join block is does something called concatenation. And what that means is to stick strings together. And hopefully you remember what strings are. Strings are just collections of letters or characters or symbols, and it sticks them together. So it's not addition, but it'll take the words and smush them together. So if I, for example, click this whole block right here, you'll see that the word apple, apple, and banana all get stuck together. There are spaces here. So if I were to delete those spaces, this whole string here would just get stuck together. Okay, like that. The reason we want to do this is we want to actually display to the user or output their actual GPA value. So watch what I do here. I'm going to take this text that I typed in. I'm going to delete it. Well, I'm not going to delete it. I'm sorry. I'm going to do Control X or Command X if you're on a Mac to cut that text. And I'm going to do Control V or Command V to paste it into the join block. And this says, excellent, you have A. And I'm going to go up to variables. I'm going to grab the GPA variable. And just notice here, I do put a space after the letter A right here. If you can see that, there's a little space there. So that when this prints out, it'll say, for example, excellent, you have a 4. Obviously the word banana is there, but it's going to say you have a 4. Delete that text, put a space, and I'm going to say GPA. Period. That's an A average. And I'm going to take that entire block of code and just drop it in there. You just clean up these little comments here so they're not all stuck together. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense there. Oh, shoot. My bad. I put this join block in the wrong place. Join block doesn't go there. I'm sorry. It goes in the say block right there. My fault. My fault. Okay. Let's just take a look. Let's test to see what happens here. So I'm going to click the green flag to restart our program. And just for now, I'm going to type in all A's. And type done. And it says here, excellent, you have a 4 GPA. That's an A average. Now, I could make it say 4.0. I could do that, and I could just do it by right where the GPA is here, put a 0.0. And then when I run that, and type done, excellent, you have a 4.0 GPA, that's an A average. I could do it that way. This isn't going to work out exactly right because there's going to be points where we're going to get a perfect like 2.0, but I can't put the 0.0 in there because it could also be like, you know, if they had a, say a C average, they could have like a 2.2. So that wouldn't exactly work. But just in this case, I'll just leave it like this for now. Okay, so we are going to do the exact same thing, but it's going to be a little different because if you look up here, we have got an A minus now. So A minus is between 3.9 and 3.7. So in order to do that, I need to do one different thing, which I did not do here. So the first thing I'm going to do is duplicate this little block of code here. So I'll put my cursor on the if, two-finger tap and click duplicate. And I'm going to stick this, well, before I even do that, let me get rid of these comments here because we already have these comments. Perfect. And I'm going to drop this in the else slot. So if the GPA is 4.0, do this. Else if the GPA is, and this time it's between 3.9 and 3.7. So I need to do something a little different. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, let's see here. Let's grab an and block. Okay. So this is where we use these blocks here. And this is called a, oops, not duplicate. Let's add a comment. This is a Boolean. This is a Boolean. And basically what a Boolean is it's going to return a true or false value. And in order for this a Boolean to be true, both this statement that's going to go in this slot needs to be true, and the statement that goes into this slot needs to be true. And so because we're looking for a GPA, and I'm going to get rid of that whole thing and put the and Boolean right there. What I'm looking for is a GPA that is going to be between 3.9 and 3.7, but it includes 3.9 and 3.7. So it's got to be 3.9 all the way down to 3.7, including 3.7. So in order for us to do that, I'm going to grab, first off, a less than Boolean. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say the GPA needs to be less than 4.0. Now notice I am not saying 3.9. And I'm not saying 3.9 because if I said that the GPA has to be less than 3.9, that means it does not include 3.9. So I actually need to say that our GPA needs to be less than 3.9, and our GPA needs to be greater than, just double check what that value was again. It needs to be greater than 3.6. Because that does not include 3.6, it's greater than 3.6, which means it's got to be 3.7. So I dropped that in there. So let's test this out. So, well, first off, let me change the say block. So excellent, you have a blank GPA. I got to get rid of this 0.0 thing, but I also need to leave a space there. That's an A minus average. So let's test this out. I'm going to do all A's and one B and type done. So notice that is a 3.9 and it says excellent, you have a 3.9 GPA. That's an A minus average. That works. Let's just try this one more time. Let's do 5 A's and 2 B's. Okay, you'll see excellent, you have a 3.7 GPA. That's an A minus average. Okay, so 3.7, perfect. Let's say, just to test, 5 A's, 1 B, and 1 C. Done. So you'll see that that's a 3.6 GPA, but nothing happens because 3.6 is not included in this range. This is only if the GPA is greater than 3.6. So hopefully you can see the difference between these comparison operators and the Booleans. Hopefully you can see that there. Okay, so this next part, I'm gonna speed this part up a little bit. And what we'll do is we'll come back and look at the code once we've got everything typed in here, but I'm going to speed this part up, and it's all pretty straightforward from here. We just need to build out the rest of our conditions for each of our averages here, and then we'll come back, look at the code so that you can match up your code and make sure that it works okay. But go ahead and get started, or go ahead, I should say, and finish up all of these conditions here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and filled pretty much everything in except for our F here, but you'll notice, and I'm just going to zoom this in a little bit and I'll just kind of walk you through it, but right here we've got our A's. So if it's less than 4.0, greater than 3.6, that's an A minus, or sorry, if it's straight 4.0, it's an A. These are our A's right here. So it's basically just an A minus. If it's less than 4, greater than 3.6, that's an A minus. And notice I say excellent for the A's. For the B's, here's a B plus. It's less than 3.7, greater than 3.2. That's a B plus. Here's the B. Here's the B minus. Here's our C averages. And notice I said keep working hard. You have a blank GPA. So there's our C plus. Our C minus. Here's our D averages. So that's going to be our D plus is less than 1.7 and greater than 1.2. And just look over here. Here's our D plus. As long as it's less than 1.7, so that means it's between 1.6. And then I say as long as it's greater than 1.2, that means it would include 1.3. Okay. And then the message I used was hang in there, you have a blank GPA. That's a, ooh, here's a mistake. I need to change that to A. Just caught that one there. AD minus. That's A, and also right here. Oops, I missed that. AC plus. That's A. Just change those from and to A, because that would be weird. This one's kind of interesting though. Like F, it should be AF, but it kind of sounds like you want to say unF, but we'll just say A for the F. But anyways, right here, so you'll notice our D minus, that is basically anything, a D minus is anything, any GPA that is less than 1.0 and greater than 0. So if you look right here, that's going to be your 0.9 all the way down to 0.1. So then last but not least, and for this one, there should not be any other range. There shouldn't be. So we could do something like what we did up here, where we said, like, if it's not an F, then please enter a valid letter grade. we've covered most all numbers here. And because this section of our code up here only lets us enter the values 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0, we shouldn't run into any issues. So what I'll do is I'm just going to duplicate this block right here. And I might say, instead of saying pick up the pace, I'm going to say something like, yikes, you have a blank GPA. That's a F average. Step it up like that. So I don't need a condition here, because if it's not between 4.0 and 0.1, then it has to be an F, because it has to be 0. It can't be over 4.0 because we never add a value up here that would be higher than the value of 4. So these conditions should cover all of our GPA averages. Okay, let's test this out. Let's see what we got here. It's kind of hard to see. It's a big block of code. Let's test this out. Let's do a couple A's, maybe a D and an F, a C, another B, and a C. Type done. Keep working hard. You have a 2.3 GPA. That's a C plus average. Let's just double check if that is right. 2.3. Yeah, that is a C plus average. Interesting. Okay, let's try all Fs just to make sure that works. Yikes, you have a 0 GPA. That's an F average. Step it up. Cool, cool, cool. Couple B's, a C, a D, an A, an F. Let's just try all B's real quick. Maybe all B's and a C. Great, you have a 2.9 GPA. That's a B minus average. All right, that's looking like it is working. So as you can see in this program, we made a pretty complex program, and we used a lot of we used all the key structures of computer science inside of this program. We've got our loops, which obviously is letting us enter as many grades as we need to. That's letting us repeat all of this code until we say done. We've got our if then else statements, which are selection. And I should say real quick, I forgot to mention this. Loops are referred to as iteration. And that just means that that's code or blocks of code that are repeated throughout our program. And it's a super important part of of how our program works. So we used iteration, we used selection, and then of course the way that we set up our code, this is in a very specific order. And that's referred to as sequence. So the sequence of our code was very important, and it allowed us to actually make this program work, right? So we had to first take in all of the values from the user. We had to then calculate the GPA, and then we had to run that GPA through these different filters here to be able to determine what their actual letter GPA average was. So we used all of those three structures of computer science, and we also looked at different comparison operators such as less than or greater than and equal to. We also used Boolean operators such as and here. And all of those things came together to make this program work. So if you've got any questions or comments, drop them below in the comments section. Otherwise, I hope this program worked out for you, and we will see you next time.